I think the key to my success has been, and I don't even want anyone to take this literally or even try it, is not even knowing who the heck I was and not even knowing that I was worth something. I just realized that last year I was somebody.
The face stares out at you from 100 posters from the billboard in the centre of town, from every screen in a bank of TVs filling the shopping mall wall. You see her influence in every other girl who's walking around, looking fly, urban, up-to-date and in control of her destiny. Larger than life, a fashion trendsetter, the glossy, airbrushed face of contemporary R&B. A female black role model and a soul survivor, Mary J. Blige is all these things and more. But behind the image, she's also a real woman who's endured her own struggles and heartbreak over the course of what so far has been an extraordinary life. Her first album, What's the 411, exploded like a bomb when it first hit in the summer of 1992, changing the face of urban music forever. In fact, it could almost have been said to have defined the tag. Its groundbreaking fusion of soul, hip-hop, modern R&B and funk, with just a hint of jazz and gospel, is now commonplace. But when Mary did it first, it was like worlds colliding. No one could quite believe that this diva from the streets had emerged fully formed, so in control of herself and her music, with a take-no-prisoners attitude that was as shocking and exciting as the tunes themselves. Mary paid the price, descending into a period of doubt, uncertainty and self-abuse that she masked with a demanding persona and a false bravado that bordered on arrogance. Yet the internal conflict and her painful personal life came out on her albums, and it was this very honesty that won her a legion of loyal fans, long after the initial hype had died away. In spite of this, however, Mary remained a very private person, claiming that she told the outside world as much as they needed to know, and no more. With 2001's No More Drama, she seemed finally to have conquered her demons, and her voice now carried a maturity born of experience, while her work balanced the hedonism and the heartbreak more precisely. Who now is Mary J. Blige? A strong-minded career woman in her 30s selling a product that looks and sounds so much like her own self that one might easily take it to be so. But Mary nowadays knows where to draw the line. The image in the videos, the posters on your wall, the carefully chosen clothes, camera angles and makeup, all these tell you so much and no more. Like the subtle scar on her face, the wounds to her soul are worn honestly and openly, and are used in her work when appropriate. But nobody needs to know everything about where they all came from. Mary is a survivor and more open than most, but what you see is still what she wants you to see. Scratch beneath the surface a little and you might be surprised at what you'll find. Speak to her for any length of time, and beneath her tough New York drawl, you'll find a soft southern twang in Mary's voice. Born in the Bronx on the 11th of January 1971, little Mary Jane spent the first few years of her life in Savannah, Georgia, where her family had its roots. This was the brief golden era of Mary's childhood, the idyllic Eden where the sun always shone and the fruit was ripe on the trees. A period soon to be lost, but always to be recalled in rose-tinted memories and wistful dreams. With her mother Cora and her eldest sister LaTonya, Mary moved back to New York in time to start elementary school at Martin Luther King Junior High. For a while, the family lived on the same pleasant leafy street as the school, in the city's Yonkers district. But soon, lack of money forced them to move to the nearby Schlobam housing project, Building 5. Schlobam wasn't so bad when the Bliges first moved there, but it soon started to go downhill. By the time Mary's younger brother, Brucey Miller, was born in 1982, it was commonplace to see kids freebasing crack cocaine in the hallways. Mary was just 11 by this time, and for her, this dark and frightening world was just something she had to adapt to. But big sister LaTonya was old enough to notice the change, to see that things hadn't always been this way and were getting worse. It was friends in her peer group who would suddenly be smoking rocks, or who would turn around and offer her a needle at a party. Friends who had always seemed so sensible and grounded had somehow been sucked into a desperate, self-destructive lifestyle because they saw no other way in such an environment. LaTonya knew that it could be different and was determined not to become another stumbling, mooching, glassy-eyed casualty like the shells of her former friends. And more than anything, she was determined to keep Mary on the straight and narrow. She ensured her kid sister was close beside her at all times and woe betide anyone who offered her anything. Of course, as Mary grew older, LaTonya couldn't always be there to protect her, and it soon became obvious that the middle Blige sister, baby Yonquel, who had been born when Mary was 16, had a wayward, rebellious spirit all her own. When I was younger, I didn't know my destiny was to sing, Mary told Rolling Stone magazine in 2001. I just felt something pulling me. Mary, do the right thing. Mary, go to school. Mary, do this. Mary, be that. Mary, Mary, Mary. And I started pulling away from it. The small scar beneath Mary's left eye, the origin of which she has never made public, is testament to the violence that was rife in the area when she was growing up, and how hard it was to avoid. By this time, Schlobam had acquired the nickname of Slow Bomb, a powder keg waiting to explode. But it was Mary who would explode, right out of the ghetto to go supernova high among the stars.
My personal favorite album is My Life, and the reason why is because I can look back at such a troubling time that I thought I wasn't going to make it out of and say I made it.
All of Mary J. Blige's earliest memories are musical. She remembers sitting on the floor of their apartment while some kind of grown-up party was going on around her, listening to Roy Ayers' Everybody Loves the Sunshine. She can't have been more than 4 at the time, since she distinctly recalls that her father was still there with them. He was a musician himself, whose tastes ran to jazz and funk. Mary remembers him listening to a lot of early Kool and the Gang, but like a lot of musicians, he wasn't big on responsibility and split. Other early memories include singing into the mirror with a hairbrush for a microphone and joining in with all the songs on Sesame Street. Mary's whole family was musical. Her mother sang and had a vast and well-played record collection, and both her sisters enjoyed vocal harmonies too. But as they all put it, Mary really sang. It was obvious from an early age that she had a rare and genuine talent, as well as a deep-rooted enthusiasm and love of music. As a child, singing was also a way for Mary to earn parental approval, and particularly to win back the love of the father who had seemingly deserted her and her mother and sister not long after they'd been banished from the Georgia sunshine. On his occasional visits, Mary's father would give her singing tips, train her to sing harmony, to hold a note, to breathe properly, and all the other technical knowledge that was to prove so important to her later on. With such heavy childhood associations, it's no wonder that for the adult Mary, singing would become both a healing force and a form of emotional exorcism, her comfort and her salvation. Cora Blige would play records around the house constantly, to the point where her children, much as they loved the music, would beg not to hear a particular record again. Cora's passion was for female soul singers, whose pain and experience was evident in their lived-in voices. Dorothy Moore, Aretha Franklin, Betty Wright, Shirley Brown and Millie Jackson. The first record that Mary bought for herself, however, was Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang, one of the earliest hip-hop records, on the day it came out. Immediately afterwards, she bought All This Love by Blige. Already the fusion of classic soul, hip-hop and contemporary R&B that would characterise her own work was finding a place in Mary's heart. For while soul music was played at home, hip-hop was most definitely the soundtrack to Mary's own life. The form first emerged from New York's Bronx in the mid-70s, just as Mary and her family moved back to the city. She was among the first generation to grow up with this music and take it as theirs, and she was absolutely in the right place at the right time. As pioneers like Grandmaster Flash and Kool Herc staged impromptu block parties at the parks and apartment houses of the very neighbourhoods she frequented. Hip-hop was in her blood. It was the music of the life she was leading and the streets she was living on. The cut-ups of funk, disco and anything else that had a crisp, clean groove made perfect sense in the harsh, chaotic city environment. And the MCs rapping over the top about how life was spoke to her directly. "The person I really am is hip-hop," Mary has said. "That stuff lives in me. I know how to choose whatever sample is the hottest thing because I've lived in the clubs. I've been to block parties since I was 16. I've grown up in hip-hop culture." The teenage Mary wasn't just down at the clubs and the block parties though. She was also singing in her local church and performing at school talent shows. She would sing the songs of Al Green, Otis Redding, Donny Hathaway and Gladys Knight, but already there was a hip-hop inflection creeping into her singing style. "I grew up on old R&B and soul. Then, as I got older, I got into the block parties," she says. "That's why my voice when I sing is almost like a rapper on the beat." It was a style that impressed everyone who heard her, and that would soon include some of the music industry's biggest players.
Four in one, that's just a little girl singing, singing whatever tracks came that she thought was hot, because of her hip-hop culture.
By the time she'd reached her late teens, Mary was giving her mother serious cause for concern. She'd dropped out of high school in her junior year and was spending her days just hanging around the apartment, doing her friends' hair for them. By night, she was hanging out at hip-hop parties, getting wild and cultivating bad influences. But fortunately, through all of this, she was still singing. It had never occurred to Mary that singing could be a career, that she could actually make a living, much less a life, out of it. She had one job as a cashier in Alexander's department store, aged 16, and had hated it. The teenage rebel and budding control freak couldn't stand being told what to do and what to wear, and having to carry her things to and from work in a transparent plastic bag to make sure that she didn't steal anything. She lasted just 3 weeks, finally walking out in a rage and telling her mother and sister, "I'm never working for nobody in my life." At the time, such an attitude seemed contrary and unrealistic. But it was a plan that Mary seemed determined to stick to, and rather than see her slip into a life of idleness and vice, Mary's mother and her stepfather resolved to support her in any efforts to make something out of her music. It was her stepfather who, in 1990, shopped round a tape Mary had made from the karaoke machine in New York's White Plains shopping mall of herself singing along to Anita Baker's Caught Up in the Rapture. Mary's stepdad had a number of music business contacts, including Uptown Records CEO Andre Harrell. Harrell liked what he heard and signed the 19-year-old Mary to Uptown Records as a backing singer to work with such local acts as Father MC. She also signed a management contract, one from which she would later struggle for years to extricate herself, and as a result be sued almost to the brink of bankruptcy. But for the teenage Mary, such considerations were far distant. "That's what I get for not reading the contracts and just signing on the washing machine in the projects," Mary sighed years later. "I just wanted to get out of the ghetto." Her escape, however, was not immediately forthcoming. Mary picked up a few gigs as a backing vocalist, but it was taking her career nowhere. And after a year of this, Andre ran out of uses for Mary and turned her over to his new director of A&R to see if he could make something out of her. This young, streetwise visionary in the making had just been promoted up from his college job as an unpaid intern and was only a few months older than Mary herself. His name was Sean Puffy Coombs, and at this point neither he, Andre, nor Mary had anything to lose. Puffy was the son of a Harlem drug dealer who'd been killed when he was just 3. His mother, however, had been determined that his background should not determine his fate, and had paid for him to enter a private prep school before going on to study business administration at Howard University. He dropped out, however, on seeing that you didn't need a degree to make money in the music business. The first thing that Puffy did was to put Mary through an intensive course of artist development. He saw the potential straight away for a smart, sassy female singer who could blend hip-hop beats and attitude with smooth soul, R&B and gospel-tinged histrionic workouts. In truth, it was an idea he'd had in mind for a long time, and Mary was the perfect vehicle. He helped her to fine-tune her voice, and together they carefully cultivated her image and crafted the songs that would make up her debut album. Puffy knew exactly what he was doing, and nothing was left to chance. But even at this early stage, Mary was her own woman. She knew her own mind and had her own ideas about how she wanted to sound and the things she needed to say. There was no way that Mary J. Blige was going to be anyone's manufactured singing marionette. Mary had the raw talent, and all Puffy did was to mould it in the right direction. What's the 411, released in July 1992, was the product of both their efforts. It went straight to the top of the nationwide R&B charts, helped along by the singles You Remind Me, Real Love and Reminisce, and a nod to Mary's classic soul roots in a reverential cover of Shaka Khan's Sweet Thing. Clad in urban streetwear and combat boots, her hair dyed a confrontational blonde, Mary growled and hollered her way through the likes of Love No Limit and I Don't Want to Do Anything, a duet with boyfriend Casey Haley of Jodeci. Other guest artists on the record included Busta Rhymes, Heavy D, Grand Puba and De La Soul, while Real Love boasted the first appearance of a rapper recently taken under Puffy's wing by the name of the notorious Blige. What's the 411 set a new standard for streetwise urban soul that has yet to be surpassed. It single-handedly invented the ghetto fabulous concept with its tough yet aspirational fusion of rap, funk, gospel, blues and R&B. But the pressures of creating a platinum-selling iconic debut LP from virtually nowhere when barely out of your teens would soon bear down heavily on Mary's fragile shoulders.
The way I feel about the stars that have been lost is, I feel really, really bad. This is why I decided to change my life around, because in living the dangerous life, Barry White, I don't know what happened to Barry White. And I don't know what happened with Lisa Left Eye Lopez, but I know that I had to choose life in order to live it and want to live it.
Mary, Puffy and Uptown Records continued to milk What's the 411 throughout 1993. In January, Mary received the first of many nominations in the American Music Awards for Favourite Female Artist in Soul, Rhythm and Blues. In May, Love No Limit was released as a single, and in time for Christmas, Uptown released a dance floor-orientated remix of the entire album. She also toured around the world, including a visit to the UK where she was criticised for only playing a 6-song set after ticket holders had forked out a substantial amount of money to see her perform. Nevertheless, her record sales and popularity continued to increase steadily, and to top it all, in 1994 Mary was named R&B Artist of the Year by Source magazine. On the surface, everything seemed to be going up and up, but behind the scenes, Mary was crumbling. The pressures of sudden fame were extremely difficult for a young girl from the projects to cope with. Still just 23, Mary had a strong, carefully manufactured image to live up to, one that was very much larger than life, and which was being aggressively marketed the world over through TV, videos, billboards, radios and magazines. This high school dropout was suddenly in demand and powerful, with people willing to cater to her every whim, and all too ready to believe in her ice-cool bitch diva reputation. At the same time, Mary was the goose that had laid the golden egg, suddenly thrust into the position of being the small but hungry Uptown label's main hitmaker. Understandably, they wanted to fully exploit her talent and her popularity while it lasted, and were determined to keep her working, oblivious to the exhausting demands they were placing on her. Following her tour, Mary was put straight back into the studio with Puffy to begin work on the follow-up to What's the 411, the starkly confessional, distinctly hip-hop flavoured LP that would become 1994's My Life. Looking back on this many years later, a more settled Mary admitted that My Life seemed to her to be a very dark album that contained a real bad suicide spirit. Where her first album had been playful and funky, the follow-up dealt in desperate hedonism, sex without love, drama, pain, loss and abandonment. It was the classic story. Her old friends on the street thought that she was a star now, out of reach and unapproachable, and she found herself interacting with people who were used to the trappings of power and success, who seemed so much smarter, richer, more confident and talented than she was. My Life was the work of a desperately insecure artist, searching for some kind of identity. One obvious strand running through the record was that of failed romance. Mary had never really had a proper boyfriend before becoming famous, and had only more recently started seeing fellow singer KC of the band Jodeci. Their relationship had been intense, passionate, and all too brief. By the time that Mary began recording My Life, the couple were being painfully torn apart. Mary dealt with the situation by taking drugs, specifically cocaine. It was partly a refuge through numbness, partly a cry for help, and partly a subconscious suicide bid. She would stay up for days on end, pushing herself to the absolute limit and hoping that something bad would happen to her. All she wanted was for someone to come along and pay attention to the real Mary, to ask her what was wrong and why she was doing this to herself. Ironically, the one person who did notice and try to help was Puffy. He did his best to keep her away from those he saw as bad influences, the leeches and hangers-on who congregate around the successful and vulnerable, exploiting them and offering them drugs. But Mary didn't want to listen to Puffy's advice, and his good intentions only succeeded in driving a wedge between them. My Life was released in November 1994, topping the national R&B charts for 8 weeks and reaching number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. Be Happy, I'm Going Down and Bring Me Joy were all released as singles, but album tracks like Mary Jane All Night Long, You Gotta Believe and Mary's Joint were all easily their equals. Mary's biggest hit during this period, however, was her duet with Method Man of the Wu-Tang Clan on the single I'll Be There For You, You're All I Need, which reached number 1 in June 1995, later winning a Grammy Award for Best Rap Performance by a duo or a group. Mary seemed to be on top of the world, but as far as she was concerned, she was just about touching rock bottom.
I just broke out because I know that I couldn't, he wasn't going to give me all the attention and all the stuff that I needed, because he had to take care of another female artist who was doing the exact same thing I was doing. And I didn't feel bad about it. I was a little hurt. I was a little hurt about the fact that, gosh, 2 Marys can't exist. Not right here, not right now, not while I'm doing so bad, and not while I'm feeling so bad. I need a pickup. So I love Faith and I wished her well, and I still love and I wish her well. And I love Puff, but he had to run a business. He didn't have Mary J. Blige under Bad Boy, he had Faith. And it was only right that one of us moved out, and I did. And that's why we split.
Mary's split with Puffy came about for a number of reasons. Most prominent was the fact that during this time Mary was so strung out on drugs and acting so unreasonably that Puffy simply felt he couldn't work with her. Her paranoia was such that his efforts to help her only made her distrust him more. Secondly, Puffy had left Uptown Records to set up his own label, Bad Boy Entertainments, and was focusing on his other protégé, the notorious Blige. If things had been different, Mary might well have gone with him, but neither party made a move. And to make matters worse, Mary went on to employ Puffy's arch rival, future Death Row Records boss Marion Suge Knight, as her financial advisor. Around the same time, Andre Harrell also left Uptown for Motown. With both her mentors gone, Mary extricated herself from her contract and signed to MCA. Working without Puffy for the first time, she attempted to take real control over her career, once and for all, and announced that she would be executive producer of her own next album, bringing in Jam and Lewis, Babyface and Malik Pendleton for their technical expertise. The result was 1997's Share My World, a record that finally saw Mary addressing some of the hard life lessons that she'd learnt and attempting to turn her fortunes around. After a dramatic intro-cum-trailer, acting almost as a CV for Mary's career so far, and incorporating excerpts from award nominations and snippets of old songs, the album opens with I Can Love You. Mary emphasises her emotional strengths over those of her rival as crisp, hard beats and swirling strings and synths interweave beneath. Love Is All We Need continues the same formula of soulful vocals over a heavy beat and features a guest rap from Nas. Round and Round is a hypnotic, almost nursery rhyme-like song based around a haunting minimal piano loop. While following the lush, yearning ballad of the album's title track, 7 Days dissects the events of a week that has transformed a precious friendship into a precarious love affair. It features an exquisite acoustic guitar solo over the coda. It's On, which follows next, is a duet with R. Kelly, who also produces. A slow, sultry number, it has a jazzy feel to it and a repeated, insistent chorus. The rumour that Mary had turned to religion as a way to overcome her troubles is given credence by the 45-second prayer that appears halfway through the album, the self-explanatory Thank You, Lord. It's followed by Missing You, a gospel-flavoured anthem in which Mary insists that she's not in love, she's just missing the guy, that's all. Everything is a catchy, upbeat love song, as in a sense is Keep Your Head, with its cryptic chorus of Keep Your Head to the Sky, I don't need to tell you why. The song is both a hymn to positive self-empowerment and another nod to Mary's newfound faith, as she struggles both to believe in herself and to keep on the straight and narrow. Can't Get You Off My Mind finds Mary expressing more sentiments of love and extemporising wordlessly over crisp, bubbling beats. A plea for understanding from a lover, Get to Know You Better, also functions as a request to Mary's public to look a little further than the obvious. Searching sees Mary doing just that for peace of mind, identity and security, while Our Love is a traditional smoochy soul ballad with a gospel-derived chorus. Its stabbing strings and descending piano chords successfully blend the retro with the modern. The album climaxes with Not Gon' Cry, which for many became the theme song for Angela Bassett's character in the movie Waiting to Exhale. The singer has given her man 11 years of sacrifice as both lover and secretary, and now he's gone and left her and the children behind at the drop of a dime. But he's not worth shedding any more tears over. She should have left him a long time ago. Now she's just got to be strong and carry on. An extra track is another soundtrack contribution, Mary's version of Aretha Franklin's You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman from the film New York Undercover. Mary stays pretty faithful to the original while giving this 60s soul standard a reverential 90s makeover. The album saw Mary once more living out her troubled, bitter image, as if her destructive lifestyle was a necessary part of stepping into the great lineage of tragic blues singers like Billie Holiday and Etta James. Puffy later said that at this time Mary seemed like a woman born to live out the blues, who would always bring trouble and pain upon herself. Along with the raw emotional outpourings of her songs, Mary was gaining a reputation for being moody, late and demanding in the classic diva mould. It was an image that fitted too well, but the reality was eating her away. And behind the scenes, Mary was struggling to change.
The way I feel about, just all the new artists that are out right now, I'm really hoping they're handling their business, and I'm so happy for them. I mean, I'm really happy for Beyonce because she's always been a leader with a head on her shoulders.
Not Gonna Cry was released as a single from the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack in 1996, a full year before its inclusion on the Share My World album. It was a huge hit, staying at number 1 for 5 weeks and earning Mary a Grammy nomination for Best R&B Performance by a Female. Share My World, released in April 1997, was Mary's first number 1 album and eventually went triple platinum, helped by the singles Love Is All We Need, I Can Love You and Everything. The awards continued to flow in for Mary throughout 1998. In January, she received an American Music Award for Favourite Soul R&B Album for Share My World and was also nominated in the Favourite Female Soul R&B Artist category. In February, she won a Grammy nomination for Best R&B Album and 2 Soul Train nominations for Best R&B Soul LP and Best R&B Soul Single with Everything. She won the Soul Train Lady of Soul Award for R&B Soul Album of the Year solo. Finally, she also received an Image Award for Outstanding Female Artist from the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People. Then, in July, Mary released The Tour, a 23-track live album culled from her recent US dates. This was definitely Mary J. Blige live and in the raw, and the album was noticeably free of overdubs or studio polish. Many criticised her for keeping in the natural mistakes and flat notes, but that was the way Mary wanted it. It was an accurate representation of what a Mary J. Blige concert was all about. Flawed, exciting and beautiful. Mary wasn't going to redo it to give the songs the polished, perfect sheen of her studio LPs. What would have been the point? If Mary J. Blige was about anything, it was about keeping it real, and The Tour proved her point. The album reached number 21 in the charts and contained a representative selection of songs from her first 3 LPs. Kicking off with 4 singles from her debut Real Love, You Remind Me, Reminisce and Sweet Thing, Mary Jane, All Night Long, was the first selection from My Life to make the cut. Another early single, Love No Limit, was followed by the previously unreleased Summer Madness, before a further brace of songs from the second album. The last third of the album is dominated by Share My World cuts, including the title track, I Can Love You, Keep Your Head, Everything, 7 Days, Not Gonna Cry and Missing You. The climax of the show and the LP comes in the form of 2 excellent cover versions, Aretha Franklin's Daydreaming and Dorothy Moore's Misty Blue. However, throughout this period of success and acclaim, Mary was still struggling with issues of lack of self-worth, drug and alcohol abuse. She put on weight dramatically, and many fans were shocked by her appearance at the 1998 Essence Awards when her stomach was hanging out over her skirt. Despite Share My World's proclamations of independence and assertiveness, she still felt trapped by the image the public and the music business had of her, and her own desperate need to be in control of everything she did. But her breakthrough was just around the corner. For it was the organic, warts and all sound of the Tour LP and the exhilarating experience of playing with a tight, grooving band of live musicians behind her that would prove most liberating for Mary, and would point her in the direction that her work would now take.
Okay, what we're about to do right now, the setup is for me and Puff to just sit on the steps and just, do what we used to do. We used to see each other in the clubs and just enjoy ourselves.
And it's simple, but it's also an historical moment.
Mary rounded off 1998 with guest appearances on the track Coming From on DMX's Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood LP, and Franklin and the Family's No Nation Project LP. She also contributed the song Beautiful to the soundtrack of the film How Stella Got Her Groove Back and launched her own label, Mary Jane Entertainments. Then, in August 1999, she dropped her 4th studio LP simply titled Mary. From its stark, simple cover, a close-up of Mary's face in soft black and white, unmade up with the delicate scar beneath her left eye clearly visible, Mary was clearly an album concerned with setting things straight, removing masks and bearing hearts. Its emphasis on real live instrumentation and warm, jazzy textures removed it even further from the precision-tooled beats with which Mary had made her name, while at the same time undoubtedly reflecting a natural progression. "You know the feeling you get listening to Stevie Wonder's songs in the key of life," Mary said. "That's the feeling I needed to hear from this album, and I definitely think we got it." Lauryn Hill's sultry opener, All That I Can Say, sets the tone. Smoky, jazzy, but with a slow, steady dance floor beat underpinning the relaxed but yearning vocal. Sexy, featuring Jada Kiss from the Lox, fuses hip-hop beats with a smooth 70s soul feel, the rap in the middle section giving a tough urban contemporary feel to what could otherwise have sounded almost like a staple of golden oldie MOR radio. Continuing the updated retro feel, Deep Inside is based on Elton John's 1973 classic Benny and the Jets and features the man himself on piano, while Miss Blige declares on the chorus that deep inside I'm just plain old Mary. A meditation on the pitfalls of fame and the gap between appearances and reality. It's also a heartfelt plea for honesty and understanding. Based around a sample from Burt Bacharach's April Fools, Beautiful Ones finds Mary writing her own wedding march in anticipation of the day she finds her true soulmate. A complex, delicate arrangement of acoustic guitar, choral harmonies and jazzy vocal improvisations. It's the high point of the album so far, and Mary's own personal favourite. The Gap Band's I'm in Love is another old-school smoocher, while Mary's hit version of Stevie Wonder's As, a duet with George Michael, is a storming hymn to fidelity and relationship bliss, with a choral multi-tracked hook, while Mary descends into her best earthy Aretha growl. Time continues the Stevie Wonder vibe, being based in part around his song Pastime Paradise, as well as two Al Green numbers, I'm Glad You're Mine and Time Is Not On Our Side. The latter best expresses the sentiments of the song, as Mary realises that whatever we gotta be doing it now, because tomorrow might be too late. Don't Waste Your Time is a duet with Aretha Franklin herself, as Mary trades impassioned vocals with the soul legend over a typically smooth babyface production, improvising around the classic theme of a man who's just not worth the trouble. Not Looking is a duet with Mary's old beau from back in the day, Casey Haley. Originally written with R&B singer Joe in mind, it was later demoed with Eric from the Backstreet Boys, but neither of those two had the vocal strength to act as a suitable foil to Mary. Mary had last duetted with KC on I Don't Want to Do Anything from her first album, and despite all that had happened between them, she knew that the boy could definitely sing. Perhaps all along Mary knew that KC was the only one who could sing on it, and on some level she may have always had him in mind when she wrote the extremely personal lyrics. KC begins by declaring that he's not looking for no love affair, to which Mary responds on the second verse by telling him that she, in turn, is not looking for no player shit, and that she doesn't need him to make her feel good. The real-life tension is palpable as Mary lays some old demons to rest and the couple rake through the emotional ashes of their own once intense relationship. Over the coda, Mary appears to exorcise all of the built-up resentment and anger of the past 6 years in an astonishing stream of invective, culminating in a call for all the ladies who've been mistreated to stand proud. I know you're sorry, she concludes in Casey's direction, in both admonishment and understanding. DMX and Nas guest on Sincerity, while Your Child is a tale of opening your door to find another woman standing there holding the child that she and your lover have conceived together. The story is told with depth and sensitivity, in striking contrast to the way the Mary of What's the 411 might have dealt with it. Examined from several angles, the issue is never simplified or reduced to 2 dimensions. The next song, No Happy Holidays, presents the same story from the point of view of the other woman, the one who can never meet her man's family, who knows they can never spend Christmas, Thanksgiving or Valentine's Day together. Give Me You, a typical Diane Warren-penned widescreen ballad, features Eric Clapton playing guitar against a sumptuous string arrangement. The album's climax, Let No Man Put Asunder, is the most upbeat dance floor-friendly track on the album by far, a remake of a classic rare groove obscurity by First Choice from 1997 that had been a favourite of Mary's mother. On it, Mary finally breaks loose, strutting her stuff and unleashing a full-throated gospel holler over a pounding disco chassis. Many felt that Mary's stripped-down R&B stylings were her best work since her debut. She had definitely softened her style, and in contrast to Share My World's False Dawn, appeared to be in control of her demons at last, and finally moving on up. In her personal life, she'd conquered her cocaine addiction and her drink problem and was now clean, in touch with God and in touch with herself. But she was at pains to stress that the more accessible, mainstream-friendly sound of Mary was no sellout. I didn't put Eric Clapton, who's very soulful on his guitar, and Elton John, who was at one time a big part of black music, on my album because I wanted to cross over, she said. I put them on Mary because I like what they do. Perhaps this was the most telling comment of all. Mary J. Blige finally felt able to do just exactly as she wanted, whatever anyone else thought. She was finally set free.
It is flattering. It is a blessing. It is like, you know what? Thank y'all, because I mean, without people continuing to do it, you know, it's a business. So, I mean, the nature of the business is that everybody wanted a Mary J. Blige. Back in the days, I was like, what the
Having surmounted her own problems, Mary was determined to put the self-centered arrogance of her former image behind her and to use her power and fame in ways that would benefit the wider world. 1999 saw the emergence of a kinder, more caring Mary, one only too willing to get involved in worthwhile social causes. Her humanitarian efforts included anti-drug public service announcements and work with assorted education groups. In particular, she was a tireless fundraiser for people with AIDS and became the official spokeswoman for MAC's Viva Glam lipstick campaign, with all proceeds going to AIDS education and research. In October, she took part in NetAid and in 1999 was honoured in the RIAA Heroes Awards. In April 2000, she joined South Africa's Freedom Week celebrations and in 2001 received Rock the Vote's coveted Patrick Lippert Award for her work with various charity organisations, including the Partnership for a Drug-Free America, the Special Olympics and the MAC AIDS Foundation. At the same time, she also began a credible acting career, appearing in the TV series Strong Medicine and the critically acclaimed independent movie Prison Song, alongside rapper Q-Tip. Awards-wise, Mary was nominated for 2 MTV Europe Music Awards, Best Song and Best Video, for As, and MTV also placed I'll Be There For You, her duet with Method Man, at number 84 in their 100 Greatest Videos Ever Made, at the end of the millennium. She received a Brit nomination for Best International Female Solo Artist and 3 Grammy nominations for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance on All That I Can Say, Best R&B Performance by a Duo or a Group for Don't Waste Your Time with Aretha Franklin, and Best R&B LP for Mary. She won the 2000 Soul Train Music Award for Best Female R&B Soul Album and 2 Soul Train Lady of Soul Awards for Best R&B Soul Album of the Year, Solo, and R&B Soul or Rap Song of the Year for All That I Can Say. In June 2001, she won the BET Award for Best Female R&B Artist, and that same year won another Grammy nomination for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or a Group with Vocal for 911, a hit single with Wyclef Jean, extracted from his album The Eclectic: Two Sides to a Book. However, perhaps most exciting of all was that in 2000, Mary became a superhero in her own animated feature, created by comic book veteran Stan Lee, head of the Marvel Comics empire and inventor of such legendary characters as Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, Daredevil, the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. The cartoon was used as an opening sequence in her live show and in an internet-based series of webisodes in which Mary not only voiced her character but contributed plots and storylines. Having been raised on the hard streets of the city, in my case Yonkers, Mary said, the chance to be transformed into a protector of the hood sends a powerful message to my fans that your community is what you make it, that you can be a superhero every day. It seemed that the transformation of Mary J. Blige was complete, from the tough-talking anti-heroine of her first two albums to the conscientious and caring artiste of Mary. But if her public thought that all the changes were over, they had yet another shock in store with her next LP.
Because I didn't understand looking in a magazine and you thinking you looking at you and it's not you. But right now, at this very moment, I appreciate that.
2001's No More Drama completed Mary's journey towards a strong, soulful sound that combined deeply personal statements with intense subject matter. It also marked a change of direction for the singer, as No More Drama was unashamedly a party record, one that had no time for anguish or heartbreak. Thank God I've grown up seemed to be the message. Now let's get on with the business of living. No More Drama wasn't just an album, it was a transition in my life, Mary herself said of the record. I was tired of suffering and I'd learnt something, that we've got to take responsibility for everything that comes out of our mouths. So my focus is on claiming peace and prosperity, trust, patience and love. With contributions from Jam and Lewis, Missy Elliott, The Neptunes, Dr. Dre, Eve and Lenny Kravitz, No More Drama found Mary celebrating her newfound happiness and inviting the whole world to join in. The world accepted, propelling the album to the top of the charts and elevating Mary to superstar status. No More Drama announced its booty-shaking intentions right from the start, as the depth-charged beats and military trumpets of Love signified a harder sound than any Mary had employed since 94's My Life. A brash, confident statement of intent, it was consolidated by the Dre-produced smash hit single Family Affair. Introducing the words hateration and holleration to the world, it made clear that this time around Mary was going to make you feel all right. Leave your situations at the door, she commanded, and we were powerless to resist. Steal Away, a Neptunes production, has a more soulful groove, escapist fantasies grinding over a sexy down and dirty rhythm. He Think I Don't Know, added to the repackaged version of the album released in January 2002, is a classic Lover Betrayed tune, a quiet storm over simmering wah-wah guitar and hissing hi-hats. Lenny Kravitz introduces himself with 30 seconds of Hendrix-like guitar flourishes before settling down to play acoustically on PMS, possibly the only and certainly the most heartfelt lament of a woman's time of the month, recorded by a major label soul artiste. My back is aching and I don't know what I'm going to do now, Mary wails over guitar arpeggios, warm organ and shimmering strings. I'm feeling really bitchy and I don't feel like being nice to nobody. The album's title track references the TV soap opera The Young and the Restless over a two-note piano riff and squelching beats, the message being presumably that Mary now intends to spend more time watching the programme instead of living it. It's up to us to choose whether we win or lose, Mary sings, and I choose to win. The song builds to a huge gospel climax, Mary and a whole choir of voices testifying to peace of mind and no more drama, albeit in somewhat dramatic style. Rainy Days, another track added to the repackaged version of the album, a duet with Ja Rule, was a major hit single. The two swap lines over a burbling synthesizer riff while giving a respectful nod of inspiration to R&B trio TLC. Where I've Been is a musical autobiography, with Mary singing of struggling in the street, but also pointing out that's no longer where I'm at, and where I'm going, that's not where I'm stopping at. She even comes close to telling how she got her famous scar, hinting that when I was 7 years old, my life flashed before my eyes. A strange thing happened to me. Beautiful Day is a simple prayer of thanks to God and nature over a playful, darting beat, while Dance for Me rides in on a tight, funky guitar riff and urges everyone present to free their ass and their inhibitions out on the floor. The P. Diddy and Mario Wayans remix of No More Drama is so different as to qualify as a completely different song, reuniting Mary with the erstwhile Puffy Coombs and remodelling the track into a stripped-down club banger with the hook line, "I felt better than I ever did before." Flying Away is another soulful lover's lament, dreaming of escape and paradise on another planet, while Never Been is a tale of romantic awakening. "I've never been kissed like this," Mary coos over a smooth contemporary R&B rhythm. The slow groover To You finds Mary hoping that her lover has been thinking about her, because she's sure been thinking about him. There's as much threat and insecurity in the sentiment as there is wistfulness, with Mary revealing that she's afraid to call him in case he's not there, or another woman answers the telephone. In the meantime, slinks past ambiguously, before possibly the album's most startling track, Forever No More, a burst of unaccompanied confessional beat poetry, dealing with the futile search for identity and self-worth in others, when you've got to find the love that you need within yourself. The climactic gospel soul slow burner Testimony drives the message home. No More Drama is an album that reflects Mary J. Blige finally learnt to love herself.
He's still tough, but with the knowledge I have right now, I don't have any problem with understanding that he's a perfectionist. And when you grew up on everything was failure for you, you don't understand a person saying to you, "What are you doing? Why are you doing drugs? Why are you drinking? You're a superstar." You can't even hear that when you come from that. But right now, I understand what he was trying to do, and so it's a beautiful thing right now. He adds whatever that thing is that was missing in my music. He adds it.
Family Affair, extracted from No More Drama, was Mary's biggest hit yet, staying at number 1 for 4 weeks and confirming her as a major star who was here to stay. 10 years into her career, she appeared to be going from strength to strength. She contributed to the all-star charity cover version of Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, which raised money for September the 11th related causes, as well as AIDS research and relief. No More Drama was re-released in January 2002 to coincide with the start of a US and worldwide tour for Mary. In March, she was nominated for 2 Grammy Awards, Best Female R&B Vocal Performance on Family Affair and Best R&B Album for No More Drama. And although she won neither, she stole the show on the night with an incredible performance of the album's title track. Mary was now a big enough star to be invited to perform not once but 3 times on VH1's Divas series of one-off specials, appearing alongside Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin. In August 2002, the Dance for Me remix album was released, in which assorted DJs reworked classic tracks from Mary's career. And in March 2003, Mary contributed a version of Overjoyed to Conceptions, a musical tribute to Stevie Wonder, which also featured Musique, Eric Clapton, Angie Stone and more. And following songs on the soundtracks to films such as Bad Boys 2, Deliver Us from Eva and Brown Sugar, and a guest appearance on Busta Rhymes' Genesis album, Mary announced the release of her own new LP in August 2003. Love and Life was definitely a reason to get excited. Billed as a return to Mary's hip-hop roots, it reunited her once again with P. Diddy, who executive produced the album, reforming the team who had engineered her groundbreaking debut. The first single, Love at First Sight, also features Method Man, with whom she had duetted on their 1996 smash You're All I Need. With Dr. Dre back in the production seat as well as on the song Not Today, and featuring contributions from Eve, 50 Cent and Jay-Z, the album looked like being a culmination of Mary's extraordinary career to date. Love and Life opens with a phone message from Puff to Mary, referencing the similar opening to her debut LP. No sooner has Puff suggested that they work together again than in comes Jay-Z to usher her back into the hip-hop scene. The album kicks off proper with Don't Go, an R&B groover with pneumatic beats on which Mary truly reclaims her crown of Queen of Hip-Hop Soul. When We is a realistic love song, with Mary commenting that no one ever finds the perfect man, but she's going to make the best of what she's got. The Dre-produced Not Today rides in on his trademark cinematic stabbing, plucked strings and features a No Prisoners guest rap from Eve. Ooh is a jazzy mid-paced dance number, seemingly custom-built for some lascivious bumping and grinding. Let Me Be the One, featuring 50 Cent, is a pimp-rolling, slow-stalking groove, full of suppressed yearning and ambiguous menace. The Method Man, starring Love at First Sight, by contrast, is funky and light-hearted, floating over a bobbing, playful keyboard riff. Willing and Waiting is a piece of smooth, old-school soul with an early 80s feel, topped off by a burbling synthesizer that could have come straight off a Cameo album. Friends is an intense, almost biblical renunciation of people who are false, corrupt or untrustworthy, which obviously comes from the heart. The electro groove of Press On supports an equally personal lyric, a description of the day-to-day pressures that Mary is under at the top of her game. Following a dramatic piano intro, Feel Like Making Love evolves into a classic soul seduction number, while It's a Rap and All My Love promise the withdrawal and commencement of Mary's affections respectively. After the tender love ballad Special Part of Me, the album concludes with the electro gospel workout Ultimate Relationship. On Love and Life, Mary is in love with a man and has learnt to love herself. Right now we're not crying and dying, we're lifting people up and making them dance. Mary said of the record, stressing the point that the only way to find love is to love yourself. Back with the hip-hop grooves, it nevertheless solidified her position as the Oprah Winfrey of the ghetto, empathising with her audience's struggles. I didn't want to tell my business, Mary says, summarising her career to date. I had no other choice. I wrote it down and people came back to me and said, "You saved my life," without even knowing that when they listened to me sing, it helped me too. Love and Life saw Mary coming full circle, a culmination of her life to date, as well as a new beginning.
Thanks for buying Maximum Mary J. Blige. We hope you enjoyed it. Watch out for further titles on Chrome Dreams coming up soon. If you did enjoy it or have any comments or suggestions, write to us at Chrome Dreams, PO Box 230, New Malden, Surrey, UK, KT36YY, or email on mail@chromedreams.co.uk. Details of our full catalogue are listed on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and goodbye for now.